All right. Well, welcome, guys. Excited for another Go Fractional demo day. This is something that we do about monthly, which is it's always exciting. Like with people working fractionally, definitely myself, you have a lot of opportunity to build a lot of things on the side, whether that's like a new AI app or people vibe coding, vibe marketing. There's always something exciting that's going on when you're working fractionally. And so this meeting is a chance to show off what we've been working on the side. So we definitely have some exciting people presenting today. We have Dan. I believe you're going to be covering a little bit of AI ethics. You've been working on your own product studio, if I remember. Mark, who recently we had a dinner in New York. We're going to start jumping into some of the LLM optimizations with GeoStar. And Lee, we have you. I believe it's doing a little customer success over or audit.
So look, super excited to share. We just kind of had launched this about a week ago in beta. So I'm still working on colors and some design stuff and verbiage. I think Rick, you inspired me a bit a couple times ago. I think for the first kickoff. So I started 2 months ago, just vibe coding, and it's on Replit. Got a Postgres database. I have a friend who owns a consulting company called CXC, and so I've worked with him for a couple of years, and he's got everything kind of in manual mode. And I'm like, I bet I could put that into an application. Yeah, I've learned a lot. Vibe coding's super easy and fun, and you can just create a wireframe, but none of the shit in the back end seems to work. So then I've spent about 300 hours in the last 2.5 months getting this actually working into a place where we're actually going to be able to kind of get some customers testing and things like that soon. So the whole premise of this is the platform to allow customer success teams to basically improve their performance. So it's survey based. The idea is that we want to create a benchmarking survey tool that allows, let's say we have, I think, 15 industries, say we get 100 CS teams to take the surveys, then you can start benchmarking your performance against other like-minded companies in your space. Then you have a way to actually do a performance over a 90-day cycle, which I'll show you in a sec, through success planning. So there's a couple of different ways that we're bringing in survey data. One is an anonymous. I won't take you through that process, but so basically we can send this out and say someone can start an anonymous survey. They get 3 options at the end where they can either say, no, thanks, I don't want anything. I just wanted to add to the pool of information. 2, they can create a free account. Then they land on a client version. This is the admin version. So I can show you a couple of the features. Or you can sign up for a newsletter, and I have a lead gen that I built out. So we can kind of send people the PDF, the pretty PDF of their scoring, so they can visually show people within their organization, hey, look, we don't suck, or we suck and we need to get better. So the whole premise, again, is to collect information. So we are building a database around clients that we work with. So the idea of the platform is, again, to get people to submit surveys. We haven't figured out the pricing model yet. This is kind of going to be used for the CXC customer base at the moment. But the idea would be, hey, if you take your survey and you get a score and you're like, man, we could really use some help in the team tools, process feedback, or AI foundation areas. We'd like to work with a CXC consultant or a certified consultant that's part of the CXC Nation. Great. We will help you and we will guide you, or pay to, I don't know, whatever X dollars a month, and your team can actually then self-guide, and we can be there to help if you need it. I've got ChatGPT integrated. I'll show you the CTAs in a second, but I've got in the client side, a welcome and ask Adrian, kind of a chat bot that you can ask anything related to these pillars. So the health assessment, I've got a Survey.js plugin, which I'm kind of regretting. I'm trying to work on the colors, but it's 26 questions that go across the 5 pillars. And then it gives you basically your score. And then we're benchmarking everyone against these industries. So the goal is to get, 1,000 surveys and split them up against, and then we can start ranking people based on where they fall in their industry segment. And the customer has the same view so they can see how they're ranking. And again, you're trying to track over time. You want to be able to see how you're benchmarking within your space. But the whole kind of premise is we want to be able to, again, we're capturing information, ranking, is we want to start working with people on how do you improve. And so I always love working with people on a 90-day cycle and creating a success plan based off the 5 pillars and where you rank, and helping people focus on picking 3 or 4 CTAs, calls to action, to improve however they're working within those pillars. And I've always had problems with customers, whether it's putting a statement of work together, getting people to show up, holding people accountable because they always want to change. Oh, I didn't say we were going to do that and this and come back. So really having clear objectives. The customer has to approve this. We've got a change log built in. But really what we're focusing down on, I've got to fix this, is what do we focus for the next 90 days to improve our scoring in the pillars? So then you can work on the different CTAs that I've got created, and I'll show you in a second, that is being driven by like ChatGPT to allow us to kind of create custom CTAs based on the scores that the individual has or their team has and where they want to actually improve. Yeah, so you can assign these to users at a client site to work with them, or the team can assign them to themselves. And then you get basically just a easy way to monitor towards a 90-day plan. I'm not trying to replace project tools or anything like that. Trying to get accountability for and change logs for the customer and team to work together so that they can get to that desired outcome in that 90-day cycle. Then I've got a marketplace. Again, we help people if they come in, they're like, oh man, our tool stack is crap. We want to move from HubSpot to Salesforce or whatever. We can broker those deals and help with that as well. And so again, trying to create an environment where take your test, figure out where you're deficient. We can figure out how to help. I put in little feedback things for gathering questions, notifications on customers that come in. And again, I've also built out lead gen so we can kind of see how many people are signing up, how many people are doing surveys, how many people are doing newsletters. So I can put this into HubSpot. And then the last piece is the CTA management. So let's say if I'm being able to kind of focus, and again, just using a key with OpenAI to generate some suggestions to kind of start people off. And this is all internal only currently, but I think down the road it'd be good to be able to have the customer go, man, we're really deficient in this and we want to be able to customize these for our 90-day plan and be able to then put that into the template library. And then we assign these to an account. So that's kind of that. Let me just show you one other thing on the customer side and then love to hear feedback. Let's see this one.
Looking great. How have you liked taking a Replit app to production?
Yeah, it's been tough. I've learned a lot. Ask that question again because I missed the last part.
With Replit's like super interesting, definitely easy to get like an MVP up and running, but then I feel like getting the polish on and getting it
Yeah,
production ready is always a
I
challenge.
I would say it has been super challenging.
Mm.
I have had to actually create a code of ethics and conduct document that I basically start all my prompts with. And I've been adding to this document the last 3 weeks because I've actually caught the Replit agent totally lying. Yeah, it is not, I don't know if there's other applications out there that do a better job, but man, the getting the data structure and making sure the calculations and everything works,
Yeah.
the Replit agent just it can't. I have to use kind of 3 GPTs to kind of get things going, and I don't have a coding background, so it makes it. I have managed teams and been a product manager, so that has really helped to kind of put together the documentation. But man, it is not as easy as I was led to believe.
Yeah.
And just lastly, I'm working on building the agent so it can be a coaching agent. So we have in the database, I have all the documentation, and then I have a coaching element that allows the team to look at questions that are being asked and then be able to change those prompts. And I have it built to look at the coaching elements first, then the documentation to kind of create a smarter tool. But yeah, and then this is just the UI for the customer. So I think that's all. That's it. That's what I've been working on the last 2 months.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Any
Yeah, that's
questions?
super impressive.
Any super comments? Like that sucks. You go away.
Well, Lee, what I think I kind of know it, but what's your background and like why this idea?
Yeah, I've been in customer success operations, kind of business operations my whole life. And I've just always been passionate about trying to figure out the best way to kind of improve customer experience in the customer success teams. And so I've always wanted to build, and I almost got to do it at the last company, kind of this success plan concept. And so when I was talking to Adrian over at CX Chronicles, I'm like, okay, if we can do this, then let's add this in. And yeah, so I just, software operations, voice of the customer is all kind of the areas I just love storytelling for teams. And so, yeah.
It's amazing. I can't believe you did all that. And
Well, thank you. I was like, it has been, I mean, seriously, like so frustrating. Like your question, like it's way harder, I think, not coming from a dev background to get stuff over the line. And I've really had to box in the agent. Like I just like seriously, every time I start mine, look at our dev framework, like don't be a dick document. And what I actually found, because I was using Claude kind of outside as well as, and Replic's built on Claude, I have found that has not worked. So I've switched to ChatGPT, which actually got me through like 3 big things I could not figure out last night. And so, so yeah, it's, I think like you said it perfectly, like getting to concept, super easy. I mean, it's crazy how quickly you can just have a mock-up, but everything's hard-coded. Nothing is built on anything that actually is scalable or launchable.
Yeah.
And so having that, if I had a person that was a little more of a dev person, it would be a great match. But I mean, seriously.
Fractional CTS. There you go.
Yeah. So, all right.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for letting me
Awesome.
share. I really appreciate it. You were the kind of first time I just ran you through it. So sorry if I got too feature heavy.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I had a question for Lee, if I can ask.
Jump in.
Is that cool? Yeah. Yeah, just kind of on the tail end of what you were saying, these sorts of things are a process, and you went through a process doing this. Would you do it again? I guess is the question. Was it, do you feel like, yeah, I learned a lot. I would definitely do this again. Or you're like, no, never again.
No, great question. I'm already starting on 2 other drafts, but, and it's funny because like I said, I've managed QA teams and projects, and I got so excited just jumping in going, oh, let's see what this thing can do. Before I knew it, I actually had the shell done. And so, but then I had to go back after about a week and go, nothing works. I had to step back and build the whole project, the project outline, the design and wireframes. I had to go build all that, which Replit, one thing is when you start a project, it doesn't allow you to kind of like let me go and actually put everything in the docs folder so I can reference like best practice and those kind of things. That's the biggest lesson that I learned, is that I'm not going to jump in to start building things. I'm going to take the time to do what you would do if you were working with a dev team, is actually put the project plan together, outline everything, bounce the ideas off people, mock up everything, and really get the data structure right. Because I had to rebuild the data model twice in the last 2 months.
Drop database and just
No, but yeah, no, I'm
would
having
you do
so
it in
much fun.
Replit again, or would you choose something else?
I would love to hear if anyone has had luck on anything else, because honestly, I mean, it took me 6 hours to deploy the first time. Like I had to go through so many problems. And then I think now that I know, when I first deployed, I had a whole bunch of data problems. So I fixed that. And last night I actually deployed it was about 30 minutes. So I think it's getting better, but I would love to know if Leah is lovable or Windsurfer or whatever the other.
Cursor, Claude Code, a lot of people have been moving over to. But yeah, going back to what you said before, like I feel like the best way to do it, and like a lot of people are doing now, is like you just write your PRD, and then your PRD will generate all your tickets in linear, and then all the linear tickets will turn into PRs. And so like that's what I think has been the best way, but everything's always evolving at this point.
Yeah. Thanks,
But
Michael.
awesome. So no worries.
All right, we're gonna go to Mac. Yeah.
Hey, you guys.
Pivoting from AI to there we go.
Some more AI.
Can everybody hear me okay? Cool. Well, good to meet you guys. Just so I know who's here on the call, are we all part of the Go Fractional community? And we're all fractional folks who have plugged into the platform? Great. Awesome. So my name is Mac. I'm an expert in this extremely new and emerging topic. Maybe you've heard of it, called GEO. And it goes by a few names: GEO, AEO, AIO. So this all kind of encapsulates the idea of how do you get your brand or your company mentioned more or differently in AI search. So just a show of hands, are we thinking about this on our teams? Is this a request that we're getting from CEOs? Okay, a few of you. So I'll just kind of say the thing that we all have probably noticed, which is that a lot of referral traffic is changing from Google to new LLM search interfaces like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. ChatGPT tends to be the biggest one. The biggest one is Google AIO. When I say Google AIO, are we all familiar with what I'm talking about there? Okay, so this is the new kind of results that are appended to the top of the traditional Google results. And people seem to think that ChatGPT is really the biggest interface that's kind of come up recently, but actually Google AIO is the biggest by far, just because it captures all of the existing user base from Google. And so a lot of our clients and brands are trying to understand how to get better position and be mentioned more often in Google AI overviews, as well as ChatGPT and the others. So my goal here with you guys is just talk a little bit about the problem, why it matters, hopefully give you some lessons about how to improve how you appear in AI search, and then along the way, tell you a bit about my company, which is called GeoStar. So I'll start with the last first. My company, if I can share my screen really quickly, makes a tool to help you understand and improve how you appear in AI search. And this is us. So we make a tool. I'll quickly kind of run you guys through it. And it generally helps you accomplish three things: how you appear in AI search, why you appear that way, and then what you can do about it. So before I kind of dive in, I'll just kind of pause. Does anybody have any questions? Does anybody think this is not worth spending time on, AI search? Are we all on the same page and we're convinced this is where search is headed? Okay.
Yeah, I've definitely been seeing traffic increase from you know, but like a good like 10-20% at this point, like compared to like organic search.
Awesome. That's really significant. Right now, what we're seeing is that people who start to embrace AI search as a new acquisition channel are really getting some early gains, because not everyone's there yet. So there's some arbitrage to be done here in the short term, where if you start focusing on this channel, you can get some early wins. Additionally, there are going to be fewer winners in AI search than there will be in traditional search. And what I mean by that is, if you're familiar with ChatGPT, you might type in, what's the best running shoe under $100, and you only get 5 results, actually. Now contrast this with typical Google search. You might get 10 to 15 on the first page, and maybe even paginate to the second page. But with ChatGPT, there will be sort of 5 winners to that question. And so I think part of our goal as marketers is to make sure that we're the answers to the most relevant questions to our brands. Yeah, just to reiterate what Jonathan was saying a second ago, there are some really interesting use cases. For those of you who know Vercel, it's a web hosting framework. 6 months ago, he saw 1%. This is the CEO. They saw 1% of their acquisitions coming from AI. Then it was 4.8 a few months later, and now it's 10% of their signups. So actually, this number rhymes with what Jonathan said a second ago earlier, where there's really a sizable amount of referral traffic coming from these sources now.
Yeah, we're seeing still very small percent of overall traffic, but growing fast. But a big difference in like lead quality and lead volume coming from the AI channels versus Google. So the conversion rate to lead is just much higher.
So you're seeing more signal in AI.
Yeah, gut tells me they're just more informed. They've done a lot of research. By the time they come to us, they're ready to go because they've got all that contextual awareness on like the LLM.
Yeah, they were talking with an assistant the whole time to learn about the category.
Yeah, but we just started breaking it out like in the last few weeks, what's coming from AI versus organic.
That's awesome. I wish I had data to share with you guys on this, but I can follow up with it after the call. The industries that have the most product market fit with AI search are B2B SaaS and the beauty industry, actually. So B2B SaaS procurement, 90% of B2B SaaS procurement uses AI at some point in the purchasing process. This is replacing things that you would typically do to understand SaaS vendors, like go to g2.com or look on Reddit or Quora. Now a lot of this information is now being resurfaced in ChatGPT. So if any of you guys are working in B2B contexts, AI definitely matters.
I just had my first 2 leads come in last week, and we capture what the lead source is. They said ChatGPT. And I don't really know how that happened yet, but I'm totally okay with it. I'm here for it.
Nice. What's your company, Sabina?
B2B SaaS management. We advise B2B SaaS companies, and expanded now to say more tech, because we have some customers that have the on-prem cloud computing and managed services pieces, but predominantly post-sale professional services, customer success, community loyalty, and support.
Okay, so you had a customer convert to your consulting services via ChatGPT. Yep. And
Correct.
Is this because you have a conversation with them when they come inbound and you ask how they heard about you? Okay,
yep.
That's awesome. Is anybody tracking referrals from ChatGPT, for example, in Google Analytics or other analytics platforms? You may want to if you're not, because I think that'll start to uncover that there's a real opportunity here for some of you. So that being said, I just want to address a quick misconception before I show you kind of how we try to solve the problem. One misconception is that SEO is the same as GEO. So SEO, search engine optimization, it's a collection of activities to help you rank higher in Google results. The research that we've been reading says that about 30% of SEO carries over to GEO, but about 70% of GEO is based on just new stuff. And one example of that is the backlink. So if you're familiar with SEO, one thing that increases your SEO positioning over time is having many backlinks from many different websites talking about your brand. So for example, if you have a high domain authority website like Wikipedia or the New York Times talking about your brand, it's extremely good for your SEO power. But with GEO, backlinks don't matter as much. Neither does a domain authority. If you guys are familiar with domain authority, this usually refers to how long a domain has been around and how long it's been an authoritative domain. And when that domain refers to you, it gives you more power. But with AI, we're looking more for what's called contextual mentions. So this can be a plain text mention about your brand in a variety of places, and it helps shape the narrative that AI understands about your brand. So when they talk with you, it's sort of an amalgamation of all these things they've heard about you from all over the web. That being said, I'll jump in and I'll show you a bit about how we solve this for some of our clients. And I'll use an account from Tasters Club to show you what that looks like. Funny enough, this is actually a company I founded 12 years ago. Tasters Club was the first subscription service for craft spirits. So we would sell people and introduce people to fancy booze like whiskey and bourbon and scotch and things like that. When we work with a company, the first thing we want to do is understand their prompt space. Now, prompt space is a term that kind of encapsulates all of the prompts that really are relevant to your brand. So if you have an SEO background, this would also be your keywords. So these are the prompts that somebody would enter into ChatGPT or Google AI Overviews or Claude or any LLM, and they're the question for which you want to be the answer. And it's really important to think critically about how we develop our prompt space. I think a good place to start would be 10 actual and 10 aspirational prompts that encapsulate your brand. What I mean by that is monthly liquor subscription boxes is pretty much on the nose with what Tasters Club offers. So that's an actual prompt. I would say a more aspirational prompt might be, what's a good gift for boyfriend? If you see this down here. This is less about what's converting traffic to the brand right now and more about where we want to be in the future. So over time, we run the prompt and we kind of understand what's the reaction from ChatGPT. And I'll just continue to use ChatGPT kind of as the example here, but actually everything I'm about to say is also true for all of the other LLMs as well. And since we're talking in AI land right now, if I ever say something that kind of confuses somebody, just raise a hand and I can totally explain. But we're kind of entering a new weird world where AI operates a little differently than Google. One reason that it operates differently than Google is that search has become probabilistic. What I mean by that is Google search, if I type something, if one of you type something into Google, we'll see the same result every time. But AI search is actually fundamentally different because maybe you've noticed this. If you type something into Google the first time, the second time, the third time, you'll get different results every time. And so to really understand how your brand shows up, you have to look at it probabilistically. So one thing we do with all of our clients is we take their prompts and we run them many, many times per day. And only then can you get an accurate, really picture of how you're showing up in AI search. So next to each prompt, you can click in and understand. We run your prompts many times, and we help you understand where you are probabilistically in the search results. And for these searches, you can see Tasters Club is showing up 100% of the time. We always want to be in the first position if possible. I see we're a 2 here, we're a 3 here, we're a 1 here, 2.5 here. So it looks like there's a little bit of work to do. But for the most part, I would say these top 6 prompts are in a very good situation. Then we have a sort of second tier of prompts where we show up between 3/4 and 1/2 of the time. And then we have kind of the long tail here where I think Tasters Club has some work to do, between 0 and 6% visibility. We also track sentiment. So every time you're brought up and mentioned in ChatGPT, is it a good thing or a bad thing? In this case, a positive 1 is the highest you can get and a negative 1 is the lowest you can get. And it looks like Tasters Club is mostly 1s and there's a 0 here. So I'd want to dig into what's going on there. For the most part, as you probably noticed, ChatGPT and these other AI engines, they're trained to speak very positively about everything. So usually it's very rare that you see a -1 in this scale, but we still track it. We can also dig into competitors. So how does Flaviar, this was our competitor back in the day, how do they fare for these same prompts? We can also isolate ChatGPT, Google AIO, or others. We can also run your prompts over different locations. For example, maybe you are working with a regional service where it only works regionally, or maybe you're looking to target a certain country. We can also isolate the prompts to be run over only in those countries. This brings us to what's called an overview. Overview gives you a blended number that tells you how visible you are over all of your prompts. I wouldn't say this number is ever objectively good or bad. It's just to be seen as a baseline. And from here, we know where we're starting and we can start to drive the numbers up and to the right. You can also see where your brand is relative to other brands. So here you see Tasters Club is almost the industry leader, but it's kind of eked out a little bit here by Flaviar. They have 2% on Tasters Club, but that's a gain that's actually pretty manageable. So Tasters Club can narrow that gap if they work hard. You can also see which is the engine that's favoring you. In this case, Tasters Club is showing up better in Perplexity than ChatGPT. Okay, so where it becomes to get interesting is now that we've seen how your brand can show up in AI, we can actually start to see why it shows up this way in AI. So first of all, we're just going to look at all brands, all competitors together, what articles are driving movement in the entire category. And it looks like Reddit is the king. So because this is kind of often a gift, a lot of people are going unique gift suggestions for stubborn boyfriend. What do men actually want for gifts? Wife gifted an online whiskey subscription, closer look. Valentine's Day ideas, gift ideas for men. This is telling a pretty strong story that Reddit, none of these Reddit links has an enormous amount of power. Oh, we see a couple 10s and 13s in here. But if you're playing in this kind of alcohol category right now, you need to have a strong Reddit game. That's what this is telling me. Let's actually sort by percentage of response and click into a given brand. So let's see what's happening with Tasters Club. Okay, so there is an article, My Subscription Addiction. This must be an industry blog type talking about different subscription services, and they must have done a feature on Tasters Club. Or in this case, it looks like it's comparison content talking about all alcohol subscriptions, Tasters Club being one of them. Tasters Club's own domain comes up with a lot of power. And I'm also seeing a lot of concentration around prompts. So for example, these articles are coming up for 5 different prompts, 4 different prompts, 3 different prompts. So to me, part of what this tells me is that because we're seeing a huge concentration among very few sources, I think Tasters Club needs to do a better job at making a larger media footprint. So they should be doing a better job at making more content on the tastersclub.com domain. And they should also be doing a better job at getting more content placed on external sites, like My Subscription Addiction. Clearly, this is a very valuable backlink. So once you look at this, you start to see, and you look at what articles are driving impressions for Tasters Club, what articles on the internet are driving impressions for competitors, you start to connect the dots a bit and see what your own media strategy should be. Now, before I show you the final part, I see we have a chat. Going to get a stubborn boyfriend t-shirt. Yep, I think that's your subreddit, Rickon.
Yeah, my wife's going to be happy about that t-shirt then.
The final thing is Content Studio. So now that you understand what content is helping you rank as a brand and helping your competitors rank as a brand, we can help you write content that's statistically proven to do the same for you and to improve your rankings. So it starts with an idea. Your content team would say, okay, I want to write about something. Let's see what we can auto-generate. Let AI do the hard work. Cool. Mastering gifting. It understood that Tasters Club is often a gift because of the articles that refer into it. You know, let's change this and say spirits subscription gifts for the discerning guy in your life. And so we're just going to write some content based on this, using elements that are from academic research determined to help you improve how you appear in AI search. So there's some interesting research coming out right now, like this paper, among others. I'll drop it in the chat if you guys want to go deep and read about this. But there are certain parts of your content that will make it more likely to push you up in AI results. And this is a research article that dives into some of that. We write content using all of these lessons. So everything we write includes 37 different proven factors that will allow you to increase your visibility in AI search. So here's the article: Spirit subscription gifts for the discerning guy in your life. Finding the perfect gift for the discerning man in your life can be a challenge, whether it's for a birthday, anniversary, or just because. So I won't bore you and read the whole thing, but it's written in such a way where we prioritize things like structured information with lists, step-by-step breakdown, and summaries. And these are all elements of content that will make it so AI is more likely to index that. Let's pretend we wanted to post this on a blog. We would work to shape it a bit. I might say, let's make this a little shorter. And we can make the content a little shorter, but we still write it with all of these 37 proven factors in mind. Now that we've written the article, we can pass it to our content team, we can edit it, we can continue to work on it. And then we can do things like we can add a LinkedIn post around it, and we can add a tweet around it. Because the content that does the best in AI search is the content that lives on your blog, for example. And then there's kind of a wide footprint pointing back to it. So this is written in kind of a LinkedIn first kind of way. And then we can also make a tweet pointing back to the same article. So you can start to connect the dots here, where what the tool tries to allow you to do is to help you understand how you appear in AI search, why you appear that way, and then what to do about it through content.
Super cool. And so if I'm a new company and I don't know what prompts I'm showing up for, can GeoStar help me like identify like what prompts are leading customers to the site?
Yes, we can, but I need to caveat that by saying that no one can truly tell you what prompts you're appearing as, because
Sure. There's no
Google
Google Search Console for that.
not yet, and that's going to be amazing when that comes out. But for now, the best we can do is make extremely educated guesses. And so what we do is we have a large data set that was released publicly that we have access to, and we essentially usually use SEO data as a good proxy. So if you can tell us what SEO keywords are the top 20 keywords, for example, that help you rank in Google, we can sort of promptify those using data that we have. We scanned the data of prompt information, and we understand how sort of like people will take keywords and then put them into more natural language terms. Using that, we can come to a pretty good intelligent guess of what your keywords would be. But this is really the most important part. When you think about your AI strategy, the most important part is to be extremely thoughtful about what your prompts are. Because if you're pointing your ship in the wrong direction, your data won't be as good either.
Yeah, makes sense. And so I guess as part of onboarding, you generate that list of prompts for a company based off of what their top search terms are.
Yes, we take your SEO data as an input and we can promptify all of those. But like I said earlier, we want to make sure we're pointing in a direction that's somewhat actual. So we like to take the list of SEO keywords that are used to convert to a conversion for you. And then also more aspirational keywords as well. Because, for example, with Tasters Club, gift for boyfriend is extremely aspirational, and we want to start writing content for gifts for boyfriend. Yeah, we want to watch that number start to go up.
Yeah, and I guess because it's such an evergreen field and you don't need the domain authority, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit for people to build out those listicles and for long tail prompts.
Yeah, in some ways, it's a really amazing era for smaller companies right now, because all of these sort of legacy SEO factors that really cemented old companies and large companies in place aren't really as relevant anymore. So like I said, domain authority really prevented new players from coming in and breaking into an industry because it was harder for them to be discovered. But in AI, domain authority doesn't matter as much. It's a factor, but it's valued far less than in SEO. Same thing with backlinks. The longer you've been around, the more backlinks you've been able to accrue, but these aren't as valuable in AI search.
What's your commercial model?
Help me understand what you mean by that.
How do you price your services and your platform for your customer base?
Okay, I see. So we work in two ways. First, the first way in which we work is we just give you access to the tool and we give you access to us. So access to the tool is $200 a month. And then additional to that, we can hop in Slack channels with you and be available to you. And me personally, I can be available to you. We really want to make sure people are successful with the tool. And sometimes the data can be a lot to take in, and it can be difficult to understand which actions to take with the data. A lot of what we're doing right now on the team is to make things more clearly actionable. So the data is such, what do you do about it? We're working on that now. And in the meantime, we can hop in a Slack channel and help you work it out as well on the $200 tier. We also work in more of an agency capacity as well. So in this way, we're more of like an extension of your actual team, your marketing team or your content team. And under that model, what we do is we work with you to understand all of the limitations of your website, make sure that you have good web hygiene. A lot of what AI cares about is that your website is very performant and clear. There's a lot of things that means, such as we need to make sure that your website is snappy and loads really quickly. We need to make sure that there's no JavaScript blocking any content. We need to make sure that there's a clear H1 to H3 delineation in your content in the HTML document itself. We need to make sure there's not too many scripts weighing your site down. And this is kind of the first step of web hygiene that we do with you under the agency model. From there, we kind of build out and we build further and further improvements to the website. And then we work to actually develop content with your team. And so for those plans, we start at $1,000 a month and we go up to $2,000. But really to price those accurately, we'd have to talk with you and understand your goals. And then we can get to a more precise number, but usually it's around $1,000 to $2,000 a month.
Awesome. Thank you. Really helpful.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Something else I'd like to send to you after the call is an article that we're about to publish called GEO for Busy People. So this is kind of designed to answer the 80-20 question. What's the few things I can do and get most of the benefit? So if that's okay with you, Jonathan and Rick, and I can send it to you and then we can send it out to the group.
Yeah, sounds great.
At the very least, I want you all to be aware of just kind of the necessary few things to do. But just like SEO, it's a deep rabbit hole and it can go as long as you want. So if you want to work with a tool like us, we can help you understand exactly what's going on. But at the very least, I recommend that you kind of try to do the 80-20 for your companies.
Awesome. Yeah, makes sense. Thanks so much, Mac. Yeah, definitely Sure, we could ask tons of questions and go deeper, but see, we have Dan is here.
I'll just give you a quick sense of who I am. I'm a fractional CPO. I run a company called Charming Robot. We do a ton of work. We're running we're doing a bunch of work in some AI startups right now, as well as work across various things in media, entertainment, fashion, med tech, a variety of things. We luckily get to do a ton of user research every year. Whoa. Okay, so I know we only have a few minutes, so I'll speed through these slides. And we can talk about me later. If we go to the next slide, the real thing that's really important here is understanding what AI adoption looks like to real people. And basically, most people they're using it every day, and they don't even know they're using it. That's the thing is they said they're experimenting with it, whether it's like playing with ChatGPT or using it so they don't even know that they are using AI with, but they kind of think that it's like a very surface level thing, right? And that's the thing to know is that people are kind of excited about it. They think of it kind of as a gimmicky thing, though, and that's kind of, if we go to the next slide, the most important thing is that most people are using it at a surface level, right? Like most people are using this in a way that, and we've all heard of it, right? People using it to make memes, or they're like asking it questions. I think a lot of people are using it for search right now instead of like going deeper. Like a lot of people don't know that you can ask repeat questions. They don't know that like you can dive deep. Like the way I use AI for work, for example, is I have a channel for each one of my clients that has a whole history of every transcript, every meeting I've had for a client for the past year. And I can have conversations with it and it asks me questions back and we can go deep and deep and deep. Most people don't even know you can do that. And most people are fine with using it to like summarize notes or create playlists or whatever. But once like they realize the stakes actually can get higher, they get a little bit nervous. They get a little bit worried. They get a little bit worried to go in the deep end. They don't know what's going to be there. And that's when they start to worry about trust. Like they worry about their own trust. They worry about like where the ethics start to worry in. Like is it okay for me to do this? Like I was giving a talk at a different conference a couple weeks ago to a bunch of 22-year-olds who were going into the world of tech, and they were asking me like, is it okay if I use this for my job? Like, is this cheating? Is this cheating if I do this? And so there's a lot of trepidation there for people in the younger generation about where the line is. And whereas like there are a lot of people in our kind of maybe a more older age, people who are kind of feeling like it's not cheating, it's taking the place of us. There's this weird line that people are starting to cross. And so if you go to the next slide is that's where people are starting to try to figure this out. There's a lot of people who are using AI for things that make it feel easy, but not when it's important. And what that means is different for different people. For some people, it's about familiarity. So if it feels like something I can just do because I can ask it a question of like kind of like the way we used to use WebMD, that feels okay, or from user recommendations, or to write an email, that's okay. But if it means like going to the ER, well, that's something different. I wouldn't use it for that. Is what most of my research ended up. It's like I would use it for like how to like fix a cut, but I wouldn't use it to like how to diagnose if I have something that would actually be medically problematic. I wouldn't use it to invest my money, but I would use it to maybe like look up stock trends. I wouldn't use it for, my actual taxes, but I would maybe look up some tax law stuff. So people want control, but they want to know, but they don't want to, but they're looking for it to help them understand their control. And that comes down to trust. If you move to the next slide, people don't trust something because it sounds impressive. But I certainly think that they are impressed by the technology of AI. What they like about technology is that, and they trust it when it helps. So I like to use this example of R2D2 from Star Wars because R2D2 kind of just showed up, right? He just showed up when he was needed. AI kind of when it's there. I think a lot of good AI startups are now are kind of coming up and showing up when it's helpful, as opposed to just letting you type in the blank box, which is a big problem for people, and becoming useful. And that's where like AI is starting to succeed, is like not just giving you a blank box to type things in, but like finding solutions where AI is helpful. And that's where people are leaning towards, where they don't even realize they're using it. And that's kind of the big deal with this with AI right now, is like people are learning to trust it when they don't even know they're using it. And I think that's kind of an interesting thing, because things are becoming problematic on the work side, because they don't like people are relying on it for things when they don't want to do the work. We're going to go into the laziness factor of this in a second. If you move to the next slide, because it's kind of it's becoming an issue where it feels smart until it touches something that matters. And I want to talk about something. I was going to actually talk about things that matter in our like like our personal lives, but something happened to me recently where it actually would have affected my work, which is that I had a partner of mine, not my company, but a sister company of ours. We were working on a project where they were working on all the deliverables on the visual side, is sending us deliverables to put on a site for a product we're launching. And we got all the deliverables and we're looking at all these visuals. And my creative director and I were looking at these images and we're like, these look wrong. There's something about these that look wrong. And it wasn't that they were AI generated, like it's fine to use AI generated images, but they were trying to pass them off as something that was their own. And they were saying that they had designed these images and they had taken these photographs. And we realized very quickly, because we had Google, we have AI tools, that they had taken like someone Instagram photo that was a well-known photographer that they hadn't gotten the IP for, they hadn't paid for. They had AI, AI kind of AI did, if you will. They had then, photoshopped a little bit more with the products inside of it and kind of made it their own. And that's just lazy and bad design. And I'm like, this is where we're going. This is something that matters. This is where like we could have gotten in trouble. They could have gotten in trouble. Our client could have gotten in trouble. And that's not okay. Now imagine you take that and then you move that where AI is now diagnosing, you're using AI to diagnose your kid or look at your mortgage or whatever. Like this is where it becomes a little bit dangerous. And this is where people start getting nervous about where AI is crossing the line. And this is why doing my research earlier this year, people were super concerned about this stuff, right? They were very nervous about where do we cross the line here? If we move to the next slide, this is where we think about where we learn about how are people using the tools? How are the tools being used, and who is the problem? Is it the tools or is it us? And I think this is when it comes to whether the everyday layperson, creating emails or creating memes, or those of us who are using AI for our work. It's like we have to understand where is that line? Are we using AI to simulate the work we haven't done, or are we using it to help us do the work that we need to do? Are we using it to replace our thinking or to challenge our thinking? Are we using it to explain ourselves or are we using it to build upon ourselves? And that's the thing that, like, as we've been doing more and more research and as we've been using it in our everyday lives, that's the thing that, like, we need to be thinking about as we can work with our clients, as we work with our teams, as we work with everyday people and build products, is to help them get comfortable with the idea of helping it with our work, helping it challenge our thinking, and flipping it on its side. Because if you move to the next slide, I think is the most important point of the entire presentation here is, we don't want to become complacent. We don't want to just throw the work back to that little robot in the background there. We want to be giving it ways to kind of take over the low-hanging fruit while we put the human factor in place and be smarter about it. And as we did more and more of our research, people became excited about the idea that they could have use it as an assistant or as a colleague or as a peer, but not, as their doctor or not as their boss or as their replacement. Because in the end, if you go to the last slide here, and I know I spent through a lot of this stuff, people don't want magic, they just want help. They want AI to be a junior teammate, not a rogue genius. They want AI to extend their capability and not overwrite it. They don't need it to be amazing. They want AI. They kind of want it to be boring and predictable and reversible and helpful. They want it to extend their ability and not override it. And one of the things I've been thinking about as a product person is the fact that our job is to make that relationship very clear and to create products that help make that happen, both with our teams, for our teams, but also for people out there. So I'm working on 4 or 5 different products as a CPO for some startups right now, and helping kind of create those things, but also been teaching my own team and a variety of other product teams and other teams out there how to use AI to actually be a stronger team on a daily basis. So I just spent through a ton of stuff here, so I don't know how helpful that was, but happy to answer any questions if that's useful.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing all that, Dan. So I guess for the product teams, like product engineering teams, like what are some specific things you'd recommend for them?
In terms of which parts of the process, I mean, I don't think it's rewriting all your code for you. I mean, I can talk about how we use it, if that's helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, so we use, I mean, not surprisingly, we use like product. We use it for like transcribing all of our meetings, right? But then we feed it into like I said, we have a channel for every different client. So we have a transcript for every meeting, and so when we're done with a meeting, we feed it in there. And so then if we're like working on PRDs, if I'm working on even wireframes or whatever, we can be like, good, great, let's refer back to all these transcripts and talk about like conceptualizing things or whatever. Now, it's not going to make wireframes for it. It's not going to do anything like that. But if we're doing PRDs, we can go through all of those transcripts and start creating at least the outline of those PRDs. It saves us hours of that because I don't have to go through those transcripts manually again, right? And
Mhm.
that helps my engineers, right? So I can go to my engineers and have a outline of a PRD ready for them, and then we're going to work collaboratively on that, as we go through things. Same thing with like I use Lovable for vibe coding. Like I can use ChatGPT to create a Lovable prompt to create a quick sense of like this is what I'm thinking of the concept before I get into wireframing. You know what I mean? I'm going to throw that away because I'm not going to create the prototype in Lovable, but I'm going to be like, hey, this is kind of team-wise when I'm thinking about this. I made 2 or 3 Lovable like ideas for my team, my brainstorming thing the other day that took 5 minutes as opposed to probably what would take me an hour in Figma. Like those kind of things are ways to speed up the process, get your ideas out there, and be wrong, right? Happy to be wrong and quickly fix it. And that kind of thing is so much more useful than trying to, spend hours and hours on something where you're going to throw it away anyways. So now I'm a terrible, like I can't speak for anyone else. I have
Yeah.
I have terrible drawing skills. I always have, and my handwriting is atrocious. So if I can like jot it down and get it done in a AI program versus trying to put it on paper, it's basically the same way as I would draw it on a whiteboard, except I can put it in code and get it out there in a much cleaner way. And I talked to my wife. My wife works for Under Armour, and they're just adopting, and she's now in charge of all their internal uses of AI. And I've helped her like bring AI into her world, and they're using it for the same kind of things, like helping to understand how to lay out their stores, just using like AI, AI programs to be like, what could this store layout be like with this vibe or that vibe? Before they ever go to their bosses and talk about things. So I think
Mm.
it's fascinating. But it's the same exact process, just in an offline mode.
That was super interesting. Yeah, I've heard of like a few companies, like a lot of people are using Vercel V0 and then sharing those, like the designers and everyone would share those with the engineers as like just the concepts.
I love that. No, the opposite thing happened though, where I had a client recently send me her version of a PRD, which I swear to God was write me a list of pages that needs to be on this website. And it was literally like a home page, a product page, checkout flow. And I was like, yeah, that's not helpful. There's no strategy here. There's no whatever. And she clearly just put it in ChatGPT and it or Claude or whatever. But I was like, this, like it's like if I said to you, Jonathan, like make me a homepage, but I didn't tell you what the product was. I didn't give any context. It didn't give any content. It was like you were like, okay, but for what? You know what I mean? And that is where that laziness comes in. And that's what I worry about. And when I was in Boston at the conference I was telling you about, like so many people I talked to were that person. They were that like, well, yeah, I just like feed it into ChatGPT and it just spits it out and I'm done. And I'm like, no, that's not how you use AI for your job. That is how you get fired. And not because you deserve to be fired for using AI, because you're not thinking, you're not keeping the human factor in there. You're just letting it spit out something and you're not paying attention. And I'll tell you for that conference, and this is kind of a shitty thing to say, but like I had to review like I guess like 10 other applications for speakers. And I would say at least 5 of them just cut and paste their or copy and pasted their submissions from ChatGPT, I assume it was ChatGPT, to the submission form and submitted it without editing anything. So all the ChatGPT shit, like everything from the M dashes to the bolding to everything was there. And it's just like, put some effort in, man. Like if you want to give a talk somewhere and you, you have a point of view on something. And by the way, these weren't even good ideas, but like if they had been, at least like add something personal in there. It was like, I'm rejecting this outright and just telling you, like, if you're just going to put it into
Mm.
AI. Yeah, Mark, Mac, sorry.
What's up, Dan? Do you think we're going to enter an era soon where ChatGPT becomes more sophisticated, and when we read content that was clearly made in ChatGPT, it might be less obvious that that's where it comes from? Like you said,
Well, I think we're there
there are
now.
these artifacts, like the M dash is like no one wrote with those before, and now you see them all over the place. And I really
I
think
wrote
it's
with them
because of
before. Thank
ChatGPT.
you very much. I've been using M dash since I was in
Okay.
college, and I love the M dash. Now I can't use it anymore. It makes me sad. But the thing is, like, you can prompt ChatGPT to be like, hey, don't use you can literally say to ChatGPT, don't use typical AI tropes. Write it in like this style, or like since I like use it a lot for different writing things, I actually say to ChatGPT, write it in the style of my voice and don't do this and do this. And like, not that I don't write full documents in ChatGPT by myself without editing them, but like, but it does start things in my voice when I ask it to. And you can say to it, like, don't do your bullshit, ChatGPT, and it will do it. So you can even be not lazy in doing it that way. So it's already there. You just have to know how to do it. And I think a lot of people just aren't there yet. They aren't. Look, part of our job, all of our jobs, everyone's job is to if you know enough about AI, is to educate people on how to do this, right? And most people just aren't there yet. They're seeing prompts on LinkedIn or whatever about creating little memes, and that's their first experience with it. And so they're gonna learn over time on how to do this stuff. But they don't even know that they can follow up. Like if you create your little Lego person or whatever, like in my first image about myself there, like they don't even know you can follow up and be like, what if I switched out myself in a car and it wasn't that car, it was an Audi or it was a pickup truck or whatever. Like they don't even know you can do that. So I think that to your point, it's much more powerful than people even know it is right now. But it'll get more so.
Yeah, I feel it's just a skill. People are still like learning on how to use it and all the different ways they can use it, and the four
Yeah.
ways to use it.
The way I like to think about it right
Yeah.
now is like AI is an F1 car, right? And there are 20 people in the world who drive F1 cars professionally. And maybe there's some other people who are qualified, but there are 20 people in the world who drive F1 cars. And if you and I or most people tried to get behind an F1 car, we wouldn't know what the fuck we were doing. And we would be out of control in 2 seconds. AI is going so fast, and everyone else is kind of trying to figure out how to get on the track. You know what I mean? And we're probably in like F3, you know, I think, or F whatever. And that's kind of where it's going. And it's moving faster than any part of technology ever has before. And that's kind of the way we have to think about it. And we're all learning as fast as we can, and it's learning faster than we are. And I don't mean that in no bad, like Terminator way. It's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely exciting. Yeah, I feel like every week I'm discovering like a new way to use it. I remember there was using a lot for like interior design lately. My wife was like, "Oh, how do we fix this?" I'm like, "All right, just take a picture and ChatGPT, and then ask it to do what you want."
Yeah.
Dan, do you have any resources for like ways we can learn about how to use AI more thoughtfully in our work? Because I hear what you're
100%.
saying.
Go
Copy
ahead,
pasting
please.
ChatGPT answers is not the way forward. But I think it's less clear for me and other folks to maybe connect the dots with how to actually do it in a more collaborative way.
So there are a couple of ways. My friend Patrick Neiman wrote this book on specifically around UX, but I think it's helpful for everyone about using prompts for it. It's like UX GPT is the name of the book, and it's really about how to like get the most out of using ChatGPT. But it would work for Claude or for Copilot or whatever the same way. That book, he self-published it, but it's really great for learning how to use it for work. It's a phenomenal like work oriented book, and I think it's like $20, maybe less if you buy it digitally. So that's a great resource. And I think he's putting together a digital course. I think he's actually doing a digital course that's like $10, whatever, online. So I think that's a great resource. There are certainly, I mean, I haven't seen many really good like online courses for this. I read a ton of articles on Medium, which is I think been like in the Medium, different like channels on Medium that have people who are immersed in this every day about this. You know, that's kind of where I get the most of my news or resources about how to get better at this. But I also think like the thing about AI is that play around, like just have fun and play around with it and challenge AI and see what it can do on your own outside of work, you know, before you get screwed at work and with something that you do by accident. But I tend to find that like there are a bunch of communities out there that are really open. There's an AI for UX community on Slack I'm a part of with about, I think it was like 4,000 members. It's very active and not one of those Slack communities that, which I mean, much like Go Fractional, not a Slack community that is like, it's not noise. It's actually a very like useful community with helpful articles, helpful people who will always answer your questions, and it's not overly saturated with just like a bunch of like posts. Like it's usually like good articles, good tools. And when something comes out, they're pretty good about sharing what's useful and not useful about it. And it's pretty good to get easy to get invited to it. Happy to invite you, by the way, if you want to. Just let me know. Send me a note, and I'm happy to get you an invite to it. That's been really helpful for me, especially being a part of that. But that book that Patrick wrote really helped me kind of get a better sense of how I can better use AI for my jobs. Have you guys done much vibe coding?
Awesome.
I hate the term vibe coding, by the way, but have you? It's the worst term in the world. It sounds like something I would have done in college plus making a lot of pot. Was basically 20, like 30 years ago, but still, Michael? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I've done a bunch. That's but it's I thought vibe coding. I thought that was like a joke term at first, and now it's like it's
Me too.
sticking. And now it's going like vibe marketing and vibe everything. I'm like, okay, I guess that's going to be a thing.
It officially has a Wikipedia page now. Andre
Oh,
Kaparthi
geez,
just
yeah.
announced that at the YC event recently. Yeah,
Okay, it's going to be in the dictionary soon.
it's going to be the word of the year, maybe one of
I
those.
think it is the
Yeah,
word of the year
yeah,
already.
yeah,
Yeah. Every
Today.
startup that's coming in vibe coding is going to get funded, and we're all but here's the problem: they're all not going to succeed. You know what I mean? So like some of them's going to rise to the top, and some will fail miserably. But it is
yeah,
amazing how well some of them work. I will
yeah,
say.
yeah. I think it's just being like doing it well, being smart about it. But I heard like 90% of the YC companies all like vibe coded in this cohort.
I don't know how I feel about that. Some
I
of
was
them,
gonna say,
it's pretty,
oh sorry, I was gonna say it's funny you mentioned with like writing how you would tell ChatGPT to not do its bullshit. I feel like I get much better results out of out of using LLMs for code when you say like mimic my style. You have a good project layout and good
Mm.
organization, and you're like do X like Y, like do this, follow this model. You just get much better results.
Yeah, yeah, the gold files. I think they call it. They cool reference this one, this one. Awesome. But yeah, looks like definitely went over. But thanks so much, Dan.
of course. Sorry
If
about
you could
the issues
share
earlier.
that book you mentioned. Oh, no worries. Like, it definitely happens. But yeah, appreciate everything. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and I'll chat soon.
Thank you. Likewise. Bye.